but the iPhone killed off smartphone design. And then the smartphone design now is just a rectangle with a huge glass screen and a camera on the back or whatever.
Streamlight MicroStreet has defined EDC for the past 10 years. Simple, efficient, affordable. We've recommended it 1,000 times to everybody as a good starter flashlight and something that you would still use to this day. Yeah.
Have you noticed that all knives now are 3-ish inch blades with a similarly length handle that
Drop
have
point.
dual thumb studs, drop
With
point
a
blade,
drop- yeah.
and a crossbar style lock? What's up, everyone? Welcome to Carry the Way, the weekly podcast where we nerd out about all things EDC gear and maybe try to teach you a thing or two while we're at it. I'm Bernard, the founder of everydaycarry.com, and I'm joined by our editor, Mikey.
Hey, what's up?
So the other day, Mikey asked me, hey, do you think quintessential EDC gear exists? Because he and our staff writer, Chris, were watching this YouTube video by a channel called Design Theory that went over quote unquote quintessential products. And my first reaction was, well, what does quintessential mean? So I'm going to kick it over to Mikey because maybe you can illustrate with some examples.
Yeah. So basically other than the video, I was away out of town last weekend. I was at the beach and I was test driving my pocket check. And one of the things I was carrying was this knife. It's a very nice fixed blade from Montana Knife Company. They were asking me to test this, but this got me thinking, plus that video, is there a more iconic or like buy it for life or like completely stable knife version than a simple fixed blade? Because it's like this is the tool that our ancestors started with, and this is the kind of tool that knife makers cut their teeth on. And to this day, like a standard solid fixed blade is kind of like iconic. It's buy it for life. It's gonna be useful forever. It's gonna be in style forever. Like a handle and a sharp edge. And
yeah,
I think
it's
that's
persevered for all these years.
exactly. It's persevered
Yeah.
as a simple tool distilled down to its basic essence. And then I got to thinking, okay, that's knives, but what about the rest of EDC gear? So that got me thinking, and also with that video, because they mentioned a couple of things like the Maglite as a quintessential piece of gear, and then they mentioned the
Okay.
Big Pen as well. But
Okay.
that video defined quintessence like a very specific thing. Like you researched it, right? You had to
No.
look up, yeah.
Totally not. I did not research it at all. I watched the video, but I watched it pretty quickly, and then I forgot most of it because my attention span is just like shot these days. So I asked ChatGPT to just summarize it for me because it is like over 33 minutes long.
Sure.
But ChatGPT said that that the term quintessence, as described in that video, can be summarized by 5 core tenets, which are perfection and functionality, simplicity and elegance, 3, inevitability, 4, timelessness, and 5, efficiency.
So a knife, a basic fixed blade hits all of those, right? Because it's like it's a handle and an edge. It's persevered through our entire history of human civilization.
Yeah, so that's the timelessness aspect.
Yeah.
The handle and edge, that's the simplicity and elegance.
Yeah.
And then perfection and functionality was the first one. So that's a design that perfectly fulfills its intended purpose, which is to just cut something with something that you can hold, right?
Yeah.
And then inevitability is a sense that the design could not be any other way, which kind of makes sense for the knife. But not entirely true because we see things that fold. But
yeah, because you have like folding knives, you have karambits, like different, like larger knives.
Yeah.
And
then the last one is efficiency, optimal use of materials and resources.
Yeah, so nothing in excess or anything.
Yeah.
So the other examples that got mentioned in that video was like a Big Pen. And basically the Big Pen changed the entire industry. So one of the core themes of that video was it's an industry defining product. Like it changed the way people wrote things down. It even raised education levels. It was that influential because people didn't know how to read and write because writing was a big thing. Writing was like a modern civilization thing during the time it was invented. And then the advent of the ballpoint pen, specifically the Big Pen, and made it affordable for more people to own, like changed human trajectory.
Okay.
And
to be honest, I don't know the history of like the pen. What were people using before ballpoint pens? Like fountain pens?
Fountain
like
pens,
feather quills?
Yeah. So that
Okay.
whole aspect of writing was tied to the ownership of a pen and ink as well. Ink
Uh-huh.
was a commodity as well. And
Okay.
then like having it be accessible to everyone at every like stage of life.
Education
Education.
level.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And now I get it.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
So that's like a
that's
huge technological advancement for the betterment of everyone,
humanity.
basically.
Yeah,
Yes.
pretty
Yeah.
much.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see this. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think so. Maglite was also mentioned in that video, and that's the
Hmm.
transition of like incandescent lights, lamp lights into something that was handheld and something
Yeah.
that was pocketable. So like the dawn of EDC, pretty much. But
Yeah.
one thing I wanted to point out here that I was bringing up when we were preparing for the podcast was like we can't define EDC gear to that standard yet because EDC as an industry is kind of really young. Like the
Hmm.
earliest, like when you started the Everyday Carry blog,
Hmm.
like none of the modern stuff we have in EDC in 2024 were even existing then. Like the
Can you give
scope
an
of the
example?
market, the scope of the like LED flashlights now is insane. It's like there's super custom high end zirconium whatever flashlights
Yeah.
all the way down to like very basic click on and off something you'd find at a hardware store. But then back then there were very limited players in the market. Same with bags, same with same with watch. Oh well, watches is a different thing.
No, no,
But
no.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Flashlights make sense, but to be honest, I'm not sure if it's there were really that few players in the game, because or I was just young and had a lot of free time and I could just research and know every single brand out there and every make and model out there.
Mhm.
But I do think you're right that there's just way more optionality now in 2024.
Is there any EDC gear that has persisted since like 10 or 20 years ago that has kind of like defined modern EDC and
Yeah.
like classics? So one thing we were arguing about, is there a watch that defined that you would that would be defined as quintessential? We were arguing about two things. One of them was a G-Shock, the basic
Mm-hmm.
square or like a
Yeah.
6900 or a 5000 series G-Shock, and a Rolex. That was one of my arguments, was like both of
Mm.
those models are quintessential, um, because if you think about it, like a G-Shock, like the 5600, the most basic of all, the one that
Yeah.
started
The
it
square.
all,
Yeah.
it's endured its simplicity in design. It's a quartz, which is a whole other beast in itself, because I also brought
Mm-hmm.
up like the Astron as the dawn of the quartz industry. And but that's like super
Yeah. Yeah.
deep
Yeah.
stuff. But G-Shock has endured. It's a simple design that's been mass produced like forever. Like it's in use from streetwear to military applications, and to this day, today they're
Mm-hmm.
producing hundreds and thousands of like the 5600 in 100 different types and models. And I say it's kind of like a quintessential design. It has defined tough watches for the past what 30-40 years since they made the first G-Shock.
Yeah. So, but are
Yeah.
you thinking about this in terms, like strictly in terms of EDC culture? Because here's one sort of framework I use to evaluate
Mm.
quintessence, or at least my understanding of the definition, right? It's like
Okay. Yeah.
if I asked a random person off the street, like, describe a watch to me, do you think that they're going to say, oh, it's made of resin, it's square, it has a digital display, it's a quartz movement? I don't think they're going to say that. But at the same time, I don't think they're going to say, oh, it's stainless steel with a bracelet and a
Mm.
unidirectional rotating bezel, 300-meter water resistance, crown on it, uh, Cyclops. I don't think they're going to say that either. Like, and I'm, su- uh, suggesting the Rolex Submariner.
Yeah.
They might describe something that looks more like a Timex Weekender or something,
Sure.
just
Yeah.
like a simple circle with like markers on it and a leather strap or just a strap.
Mm.
But they probably wouldn't know the Timex Weekender on, off the top of their head or something.
Yeah.
But then the other way to think of it is like, I feel like if you show someone a Rolex, they will know and think that like, oh yeah, that is like the watch.
Yeah. Like
you know?
any person with like any sensibility of even knowledge about watches, when they see a Rolex Submariner, is like, that's the Rolex.
That's a nice watch. Yeah.
That's the, you know, doing
Yeah.
the Leo meme. That boop, that's the
Right.
one. And if you show someone a G Shock, like no matter what age, they're gonna be like, yep, that's, I know what the G Shock is, and it's endured, and it's something
Mhm.
that they see in anywhere from a department store to like everywhere. It's on the wrist of like artists and musicians and everybody.
Mhm.
So there is an aspect of like enduring, like it's part of the zeitgeist
Like
of
culturally.
culturally, exactly.
Yeah.
I think because if because back in the one of the products mentioned in the original video as well was the Ford Model T, which was
Mhm.
like, it's that was a niche thing. Like automobiles were not a thing for everybody. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, but it also ushered in a new age of transportation and accessibility, and it defined the culture of transportation pretty
Yeah.
much for
Yeah.
humanity, like the world over. And I think that, like, in terms of watches specifically, like a Submariner and the G-Shock, like any G-Shock really, but I think the 5600 is the defining one. I think it has reached a level of quintessence, at least from um, EDC perspective.
Sure. But if we're predicting what will be the enduring watch,
Mhm.
do you still think it's the G-Shock?
I do. And the fact that they're making 5 different levels of the same damn watch, from $70 to 700 to 7,000, like,
Okay, it
yeah.
wasn't 7,000. It was like
I don't know. I'm just
2,500.
keeping it consistent.
Okay, sure,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Uh, okay, because so my argument is that like, I love G Shocks, right? I
Mm,
have the MRG, like I have the top of the line one, like I
mm,
adore it that much. I also appreciate Rolex and the Submariner and all that. It's not for me personally, but
mm,
I'm kind of thinking that like in the future, like when we're doing episode 3000,
mm.
nobody's gonna be wearing mechanical watches. They will have all become smartwatches, and
Oh,
the Apple Watch
interesting.
will be the enduring design.
Interesting. Yeah, well, one of the things Chris said was like, if they drop the Apple Watch to like $80 or $90, it's gonna be like the most dominant watch.
Yeah,
And maybe that may be true. That may be true. But I
because
think, yeah, because of, but like I was saying at the start, maybe the scale of time is not yet
exactly,
sufficient.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think like really far into the future because
Yeah.
I'm imagining like,
Yeah.
so for me, I'm into watches because my dad got me into watches, right?
Sure.
But maybe not me, like to my kids, but maybe my grandkids will be like, oh I inherited an Apple Watch like SE 93 from my dad or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
um or maybe people just won't like pass that tradition might just die
Yeah.
because of the Apple Watch. I don't know.
Well, why don't we try other categories? Like
Okay,
maybe
yeah,
we can, it can help one of the other categories can help define the other one. Here's
okay,
an interesting one. We know the Swiss Army knife. I think fair to say quintessential. Like
yes,
pick a Swiss
because
Army knife.
I think it passes my initial test where you
Mhm.
ask somebody like draw a pocket knife, they're gonna draw a Swiss Army knife or something.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. True. True.
Yeah,
So is a Leatherman quintessential, or is it too? Yeah.
100%,
You think so?
100%.
You think so? Versus a Swiss Army knife?
I wouldn't even put them in the same category. I
Oh,
would
you think?
say
Okay.
I would think the Swiss Army knife is the quintessential pocket knife, and the Leatherman is the quintessential the quintessential multi tool because it basically
Mm,
defined that
the butterfly
the
pliers.
butterfly,
Yeah.
yes, pliers based tool.
Fair. Fair.
And
Fair.
similarly, I feel like Swiss Army knife like solidified that sandwich design with multiple implements that come out.
True, true.
Yeah.
So how about other categories? So they mentioned that the flashlight, the mag light was a
Hmm.
defining one. Specifically the big, I don't know if the younger people listening to this would still remember the big the D cell,
Yeah.
the one that looked like a baton. Um that was, there's a whole thing in the video. We're going to link it, but there's a whole thing in the
Hmm.
video that it defined that industry because there were some legal maneuverings about making it
Right.
yeah.
So part of the core tenets, let's go back to them, was like ti timelessness and inevitability. So
Mm,
timelessness is that it remains relevant and effective over time without needing changes. And inevitability is a sense that the design could not be any other way. And maybe I'm gonna like botch the logic behind this, but
Okay.
the Maglite was able to remain quintessential because it had legal strategies in place that made it the only
Market
design.
and the market dominance also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that also impacted its cultural significance as
Yes.
well, because apparently there were other similarly designed flashlights and like competitors and stuff, but they weren't able to penetrate the market because of their legal strategies to like make Maglite the prevailing product.
Yeah, the Maglite discussion got us to talking because we're both like we started with flashlight nerdery, right?
Mm,
In the early days of EDC. I was thinking of a modern version of the quintessential EDC flashlight. I
yeah.
propose the Streamlight Microstream has defined EDC for the past 10 years
Mm,
because simple,
mm,
efficient, affordable. We've recommended it like 1,000 times to everybody as a good starter flashlight and something that you would still use to this day because it uses replaceable batteries that are standard,
yeah.
pocketable. The design is like simple,
It's very simple.
clicky,
Yep.
yeah, very efficient, and I don't see any improvements more to it unless you like bump up the battery, bump up the LED, which they've done. They've made a USB rechargeable version of it, but I would argue that the original one with a AAA is still like more useful than that even. And to this day, they're still making the Streamlight, and I would still
Yeah.
recommend it to most people. So I think the Microstream is a quintessential EDC flashlight. If we're past already the Maglite era because they've already been outpaced. Yeah.
I think that's a great pick. I'm not 100% convinced.
Mm.
And there are a couple of things that give me pause.
Okay, like what?
One, maybe let's start with maybe the more obvious one is that the rest of the lights that are being produced now do
Mhm.
not follow the same design philosophy as the microstream, in
And
that you have,
I would
okay.
argue to the point of overcomplication and that it's not an improvement. It's like
Okay,
what Joe
sure.
Casual was saying that
Yeah,
they're
they're
creating solutions to problems
to
that don't
problems that
exist.
don't exist.
Yeah. Because at its core, like a knife, right? What at its core, what does a flashlight have to do? You click something, it turns on, it produces light. Everything past that is a side
Sure.
grade. It's a side
Okay,
grade, right?
but are we celebrating like good design, or are we just being like pedantic about semantics in this episode? Because this is where I'm going with this. Even though like the lights that are more modern now, you know, they might have like
Mhm,
screens on them and built-in proprietary batteries and like magnetic USB-C charging and fidget spinners, like whatever built into it.
mhm,
That is like not efficient or simplistic and elegant and timeless in any
mhm,
way. Um, and that's also with our current perspective as
mhm,
like slightly older, you know, originally flashlight enthusiasts, right?
mhm.
Um, I predict that people further into the future won't care about replaceable, like the batteries not being replaceable or not, or that they get upgraded every year with marginal features, because I think like society as a whole is getting trained to accept these tiny incremental upgrades each year to fuel like
Consumption.
consumerism.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. So
I
to use your
I don't
term
know.
to use your term earlier, isn't that why we should celebrate the ones that have endured? Or like even from like just as an example, I have a shelf of flashlights over there. You know the flashlight
Uh-huh.
I've been most excited about is
Yeah.
this is a new 2024 flashlight from
Yeah, but it
Nightcore.
looks like it came from 2010.
Exactly, and it's
Yeah.
a simple battery. It's an 18650. It's a two-stage clicky, and that's it.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, this is fantastic. It's like
Yeah.
the simplest. I could hand this to anybody, and they would be able to use it. And it's if you think about it, this is the Streamlight Microstream in just an 18650 form factor. It's an enduring design. It's an enduring
Hmm.
efficiency. It's something that's persevered, and I think sure maybe in the future we have like arc reactors and like unlimited energy sources that make a replaceable battery obsolete,
Sure.
but are we also defining that just because we have Lamborghinis now, the Model T is not a quintessential design anymore? Because it's a genre defining, humanity defining, industry defining innovation, right? It's
Okay.
complicated. It's
I think
complicated.
yes, I think I'm not smart enough to predict something that will be a quintessential design
Yeah,
based on these core tenets,
yeah,
because it includes things like cultural significance
yeah.
and like history shifting technological innovations. So where I'm now thinking first, my first answer, which was what I was going to be the second point, was
Mm.
that I would have said like the 4/7 quark,
Yeah,
right?
that's good.
Because to me the 4/7 quark, like 4/7 quark AA or 4/7 quark 123, was like or archetypical
Design.
um design that is no longer the maglite
Maglite.
platform,
Yeah.
right? Where it's you
Well,
have like the head, the barrel, and the electronic switch.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll have pictures on screen of what the maglights
right.
used to look like, where it's like a conical head and then it's like a narrow body, and then
Yeah,
4/7s with a quark turned it into something similar to this, right? Like it's the head in the front, the same size tail in the back, and then like a
yeah,
narrow middle part. So that design has defined flashlights like forever
yeah.
now.
And
So
it
yeah.
made it simple, efficient, affordable. Like
Plus,
it
they were
was just
making use of the advanced LED technology at the time. Like they
yeah,
were,
and
yeah,
like aluminum, hard anodized coat, like all that stuff. So
yeah.
I was going to say that, but now after thinking about it a little bit longer and more deeply,
Mhm.
I think the iPhone flashlight is the quintessential flashlight design, because when we ask our grandkids like, "Hey, hand me that flashlight," they're going to be like, "Don't you have a phone?" Or whatever, you know
Ooh,
what I mean, or like
that's a good
whatever.
one. That's a
Yeah.
good one.
So
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's why I'm also wanting to define it. Like maybe we should be defining this as what has defined the EDC meta in the past 20, 30 years, and then just
okay,
have that as the restriction
okay. So instead, to prevent just this whole episode
to
be
prevent
glazing
like
Apple. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Sure. I'm still
Also,
gonna do it.
Also, I just noticed that you're wearing the Sony headphones that have been around for like 50, 60 years already. So
Yeah.
another
I
talk
should have
about
been wearing.
quintessential.
No, I should have been wearing these quintessentials right
No,
here.
these, hello, the
Okay.
earpods.
Yeah,
I
that's
would
fair.
say, yeah, I would say the earpods are more quintessential because the iPod was the genre defining hardware product, which
Hmm.
like jettisoned us from cassettes and CDs and any technology at the time into the digital era. And this, seeing somebody on the street with the white earphones,
Yeah, you knew.
these were, yeah, you knew like the time change. I was an iPod hater back in the day. I'm like, there's another
Hmm.
guy walking around with iPods.
Yeah, so was I.
Yeah.
There was a forum called Anything But iPod.
Yeah, I was a member. Yeah,
It's kind
exactly.
of insufferable now that you think about it, but
Shout out to Sansa,
anyway.
Sansa gang.
So okay, I did have a Santa clip.
Yeah,
But I wanted to respond though to something you mentioned earlier
sure.
about shouldn't we celebrate designs that endured, right?
Mm. Or
But we're
have culturally affected the EDC market to such a degree where like anybody in EDC would be like, "Yep, I get it. I get it."
sure.
Yeah.
But I have one example that's not super core EDC,
Mhm.
and then one that is a little bit more core, and we could talk
Sure.
about that. But the first example um, has to do with, say, the iPhone or the iPod, right?
Sure.
You're talking about the iPod and how we were on forums for anything other than the iPod. But what prevailed? The iPod.
Yeah.
And what did that mean? It meant for a lot of people, there was no other choice for digital audio players, for portable digital audio players.
Mhm.
Now there's like, head-fi, like the hi-fi scene, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. Like I still have like Sony Walkman, MP3 players and whatever.
Mhm.
Um, but the iPhone, like maybe more tragically, killed off smartphone design. And this was talked about in the video.
Yeah.
But I love and still like look for now like flip phones with
Sure.
physical keyboards, and handheld console gaming devices. Like all of that has just been turned into
Anything
these.
but iPhone. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just been turned into a smartphone, and the smartphone design now is just a rectangle with a huge glass screen and a camera on the back or whatever. And like that's
Yeah.
fine. It works
Yeah.
for what it does, and it is quintessential. But part of me
We don't
just
have to
like
like it.
mourns. Yeah, I just mourn the loss of like interesting industrial design from like the mid 2000s, where that technology was new and people were experimenting, and we didn't really know what we wanted or needed yet. There was like a lot of weird products out there. Like I was looking at an old digital camera that has like an MP3 player in it, because
Wow, fancy.
like why not? Yeah, I don't know. It's like it was just like the wild wild west out there, and I think just sometimes enduring quintessential designs kill off a lot of just other interesting and still valid, maybe not as good, but still valid and worth celebrating designs.
And there's also the factor of like, if something gets popular, everybody tries to copy it, and then yeah, well, basically re-saying what you just said,
Yeah.
and it
So
kind of like kills innovation because everybody's capitalizing on something that's popular. Everybody wants to earn from it or like get on the trend, and now
right,
everybody's
because it's
doing it.
successful. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the follow up to that, the more core EDC example
Hmm.
then is maybe the Benchmade Griptilian or
Oh,
the
nice.
Benchmade Bug Out.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that all knives now are 3-inch blades with a similarly length handle that
Drop
have dual
point
thumb studs, drop
with a
point
drop.
blade,
Yeah.
and a crossbar style lock?
Yeah.
Because it's proven and it works, and now the patent on the axis lock is gone. So we just
Mhm.
have a bajillion knives like those. They're good though. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm probably going to make a video like that
And
comes out around the time that this podcast comes out, where
yeah.
I'll just show examples of all those like crossbar style knives.
Yeah.
And then ones that are just not bad for the people who are like bored of that. Because
Mhm.
it seems like that's the current meta.
Yeah.
So
And also like, oh well, just to promote the just to add to that, Access Lock was a gift, was a godsend for lefties because it's one of the enduring locks that is truly ambidextrous, because you just flip the clip over and you can use it left, right hand, and double thumb stud deployment means like, you can flip it
yeah.
left and right. The only other version of that was a lockback or like a slip joint, and that's like, it's not as elegant. It's not. It's much
Hmm.
more cumbersome. You need two hands to do it sometimes for
Yeah.
the slip joints. And yeah, the Griptilian and then the Bug Out and then everything that came after defined the knife industry to such a degree, like to the point like how many Bug Outs have Benchmade sold? Just like,
Yeah.
probably the most enduring product. I had another example for knives. Actually, I would have
Hmm.
argued that the Balisong, like a butterfly knife, is a quintessential design.
Filipino
Specific
moment.
no,
Filipino moment right
but
there.
specifically for that niche, because the original
Okay.
balisong that they still make here in the Philippines
Uh huh.
is the same design, that it's two handles, a blade,
Yeah.
and the pivots. So
Yeah.
it's a quintessential design. It's niche, but I think for like that type of knife, I think it's yeah. Anyway, I think it's not
Okay.
as genre
Sure.
defining as like the Axis Lock and the sub 3-inch classic bug out
Yeah. Yeah.
modern EDC or folder. But I think, just to me, Filipino
Hmm.
moment, yeah, quintessential design for a Vela song.
Right. I think though, like I was thinking about how you were talking about. Let's try to narrow the scope to be like around plus or minus 30 years from now instead of
Mm,
right.
yeah,
And I just had this thought that the Swiss Army knife before we're like, yeah, that's the quintessential pocket knife.
yeah,
But I think if you ask maybe people, especially in the EDC scene, like what a pocket knife would be, they might be quicker to give an example that looks more like a bug out than they would a Swiss Army knife, and they would think the Swiss Army knife is its own category.
true.
And I think that there's like, I don't know, there's something to that there where like the product that becomes the quintessential design just becomes the name of that thing, like
Like Colgate,
Kleenex,
yeah,
or yeah, or Q-tips, like
yeah,
those
yeah.
kinds of things. Yeah, or like give me a Coke, and it's just like not Coke.
Just
I
Google
don't know.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also wanted to touch on the sameness of like killing innovation. Um,
Mm.
I was trying to think of, was there like a bag that kind of defined
Ah.
the new EDC meta? My proposal was and is the Gorak GR1. And
Mm.
distinctly remember when we crossed over from the old days of Maxpedition and 511, from all of those like Pygmy Falcon and the
Yeah.
Rush series.
Yeah.
And then the GR1 came, and originally we were like, I remember like our early days of talking about the GR1 and like, this is too expensive for an EDC
Yeah,
pack.
it was like
I'd like,
$300 for like a made in USA Cordura bag, right? And
yeah,
now that you're like, oh, that's a steal,
that's a
which
steal.
is
And it's
crazy.
like,
Yeah,
I know people who have had their same GR1, GR0 from the past 10 years, and it's still going strong because Cordura is more or less indestructible as a material. I just saw somebody the other day posting something like he was comparing the latest fashionable material, which is Robic nylon. And what he did
that's
was,
new to me. Okay.
yeah, so it's basically
Oh.
ripstop nylon. So what he did was he wrapped two kettlebells, one with 1,000 denier,
Mhm.
cordura, and
Either.
then the other one he wrapped it in the nylon, and then he dragged it with his truck. He dragged the kettlebell
Oh
on the street
wow.
with his truck, and he's like, 1,000D cordura, by all intents and purposes, is actually
Indestructible.
indestructible.
Yeah.
And so like the GR1 got it right back then, and so many brands since then have been like that assault pack. I know GR1 isn't the original design for it. It's a standard military like
Hmm.
assault pack. But
Hmm.
then when that came along, it defined that price tier to the detriment probably of the industry. It defined that price tier. It
Oh man.
defined that kind of style of like clamshell opening. It defined people wanting more from an EDC bag rather than like a department store special that's just like
Yeah.
a.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
to this
interesting.
day, like the Gorak brand has its like a cachet of like people are gonna buy the collaboration limited editions, and like people are still buying. And now that they've transitioned into more of like a sporting brand, they're now
Hmm.
like the official CrossFit brand, and now they're in
Right.
like sporting apparel and stuff. And yeah, so that was when I was thinking about bags. That and the Lululemon sling have been
Okay.
the
I don't think the Lululemon sling is quite there yet.
yeah, but it's
Hmm.
getting there. I think it's on a it's on a trajectory, at least from the women's side as well. And yeah,
Yeah. The Goruk, I think, is a strong contender. I see the case for it.
mhm,
Uh, I would have probably thought like yeah the 511 or Maxpedition type bags
yeah,
first because I also think like oh when you buy a generic like bag on Amazon that's like an
yeah.
EDC backpack or whatever
It
it's
looks
gonna
like
look like
those.
one of those and not like a
Yeah,
GR.
true,
So
true.
that was one of my frameworks again.
Yeah.
Um,
So maybe they are quintessential. Like maybe the mollied out tactical pack in your head when you think of tactical
yeah,
backpack, and it's gonna look like the
it will be
Falcon.
some variation of that because like
Yeah.
is I need to be careful about asking this question, but like, is the GR not just like a refined version of like the mollied out tactical
True.
military bag, right?
Yeah, in fact, they were the first to do that style of it's just like three rows on the bottom. That became their
Yeah, instead
signature
of
look, right?
all molly everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm. Okay. Well, my other two guesses were the the classic Jan Sport
Ooh,
and
nice.
the Fjallraven Kenken.
The Kanken, yeah, the two book
Yeah.
bags that defined a
Yeah.
generation, pretty much. Yeah,
Like that's just backpack though because
yeah,
like
yeah. Yeah.
when I asked when I a lot of this was just like if I pulled some random person off the street and asked them like describe a backpack to me they would probably say it's a Jansport or
Or like
like
a
just describe a
Herschel.
Jansport.
Herschel
Yeah,
was
but
taking that man.
isn't the Herschel like
A
still
book bag.
the
Yeah,
yeah but it's like the same silhouette sort of as the Jansport that came before it.
yeah. True, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say Jansport was still the. And what's funny enough, we mentioned Maxpedition. Maxpedition
Mhm.
makes a book bag that looks a lot like a Jansport,
Right, yeah, sometimes
specifically
the
as a
designs come full circle.
yeah,
Yeah,
as like a low profile.
it's like a gray
Yeah,
man type situation.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, so another thing I wanted to jump back to is the pen industry. So the Bic was the example in the video, right?
Mhm.
The one I would propose is the Sharpie, the
The
standard
okay.
felt tip Sharpie, which is like this has endured. It has been in people's EDCs since forever. Sometimes they just put them in like a titanium case instead,
Yeah.
to be more tactical or to be more robust. But it's like if you're a celebrity, you'd have it in your pocket to sign stuff. It's the thing you'd pack in your like different colors of it as the defining felt tip marker. I would say that specifically for EDC, the Sharpie has endured, I think,
Yeah, but I don't consider Sharpie a pen. I consider Sharpie, a
as a
permanent marker.
marker.
It's like one of
I
those
mean, yeah, same
things like
category then.
yeah.
Yeah, writing category.
I don't know. I feel like then like what about the Ticonderoga like number 2 pencil, you know? That's quintessential that's why like this is what I mentioned with the Swiss Army knife being just like if you think of a Swiss Army knife, it's a Victorinox. There's like no other thing that it's gonna be, right?
True,
And
true.
it's its own category that you think of. That's why I'm like Sharpie to me is not EDC pen. It's just like a Sharpie. It's like its own thing. And we're not even saying permanent marker. We're saying specifically Sharpie.
Yeah, like
I thought you had a different idea.
I was thinking. Well, one of the things the other thing was the Fisher Spaceman.
That I agree with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think well, just from my experience also in like the past 10 years, both those two are kind of like EDC defining like writing implements. Before the rise of the bolt action pen, it was going to be a Fisher Spaceman or like the F701, the
Yeah.
Zebra, and then a Sharpie. Just like that double, like what do you call this, dual wielding the the Sharpie and the Fisher Spaceman. And I was just trying to think of,
Interesting.
yeah, I was thinking of like people aren't carrying big pens anymore. That's been replaced, especially for EDC. It's going to be like the Fisher Space Pen because it's also the design of it is very EDC centric, right? It's
Yeah.
aluminum, it's metal, it's very pocketable. Doesn't usually come with a clip, but anyway, and
Yeah.
also yeah,
And same with the Zebra, right? But
yeah,
I think one reason why I was feeling some like I don't know
resistance.
resistance to the Sharpie is because like the Sharpie to me, I knew and used Sharpies before I got into EDC,
Mm,
but it wasn't until I got into EDC and was made aware of what EDC was and what qualities to look for, then I got a Fisher Space Pen and a Zebra F701.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So
right,
it's
right.
like a normie could use a Sharpie, but they probably wouldn't know about a Fisher Space Pen. Maybe I'm totally wrong. I don't
Oh no,
know.
you're right, you're right. And also, yeah, maybe it has not endured as well as like the Fisher Spaceman or like the F701 because not many people are carrying Sharpies anymore. So
Yeah.
it's like it had its
You mean
time.
like EDCers are not carrying
EDCers,
Sharpies
yeah, yeah.
anymore? I
That's right, that's
agree.
right.
See, that's why like it wasn't even on my radar. I was kind of surprised that you mentioned the Sharpie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I just because it was such a prevalent item early on. It was going to be Fisher Spaceman, some sort of like Phoenix flashlight, and then like the Sharpie is going to be in like a Maxpedition pouch. Remember that?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, it was going to be in an Expedition pouch. And then you were going to have like a PM2 or a Bug Out or a Cryptilian as part of that kit. Like the
Yeah.
original 2010-ish era of EDC in the early days.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on eBay and just like buy all of that back. It's just
Yeah.
gonna be like
Retro,
yeah,
vintage
Neo
EDC.
vintage EDC from the mid
Yeah.
2000s. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what other categories are there? Like here's an
So-
easy one: keychain.
Ooh.
1, 2, 3. Night Eyes as Spinner. Yep. Okay. Next. like what beats that?
Ooh. The double, the specifically the double gate, right?
No, just like if you think of what does an EDCer think of for like putting their keys on something,
Mm-hmm.
like their keychain situation, my mind goes to the Night Eyes Espiner. But maybe, you know,
I'm too hero clip pilled already to think of something that would be an improvement. But keychains, huh?
I'm not even talking about like improving over the Espiner, but
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
terms of quintessence, right?
Quintessentials.
Because
Yeah.
it's simple, it works for what it does, it's super efficient, it's
It's
cheap,
prevalent today.
everyone has it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think I like that. I like the Night Eyes Biner. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's a pretty good one. There's one category we haven't talked about yet, and it's relevant to my hat.
Oh,
What
well,
about
it's
wallets? This is the other thing that Chris and I were arguing about. He's
yeah,
like, so, full disclosure, we are supported by Ridge, but I was proposing to Chris that the Ridge wallet is on the trajectory of something being quintessential as the forebear, as the prototype of the double plate minimalist wallet era of wallets.
yeah. I could say even broader, just like a minimalist
Non-leather.
I was gonna
Non-bifold.
to be honest, like my mouth was like forming an M shape to say like M, like metal minimalist wallet,
Mhm.
um as the sort of qualifier of what it would be the quintessential version of.
Yeah,
um because when I think of wallet in general, I think like if you still, if you pull someone off the street and say like
yeah.
what does a wallet look like,
So
they're gonna
leather
say the dad
bifold.
wallet. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And then maybe if you, even if you tried to say minimalist, minimalist wallet, then it would be like some luxury designer brand card holder, and
yeah,
not, so they probably still wouldn't think Ridge wallet yet. But as
yeah,
far as like EDC metal minimalist wallets,
yeah.
I
And
think people would think Ridge wallet, because I see this on like Reddit like this morning. People say like I have a Ridge style wallet,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
a knockoff or something.
And also just to add another argument there, like it wasn't Ridge wasn't the first metal minimalist wallet,
Yeah,
but when it came along, everybody started doing their own version of it to the point of like knockoffs already.
yeah, yeah,
But the two plate design, I can't think of anything that like changed the game of
yeah.
wallets as much as like when Ridge got into the scene. And this is even before we were associated with them. It's like
Mhm.
back then. I remember you had some like really obscure metal wallets. You had like an obstructures or
Yeah.
machine. What was that?
There's a
Machine
machine era. There's
machine era. There you go.
Obstructures. Yeah. There's like Secret. I don't know
Yeah,
how like, see, I know Secret is still around. I don't know about the other ones, to be honest.
yeah.
And those weren't as elegant, I guess,
And you didn't
or
see them
functional.
like you didn't see them, and they weren't like an iconic design yet. Like it needed to be that two plate card, exactly the size of the card,
Hmm.
minimalist wallet that's specifically designed to be a front pocket wallet. When all of those like qualifications came along, then it started like, okay, I can see why this is useful. And one of the arguments that Chris was saying was like, if you're using cash, you're not going to be using a Rich wallet because it's still kind of cumbersome for that purpose. But I'm like, but in a lot of places where they've gone cashless, it is the most efficient design because
Mm.
it's like you're not getting any smaller than the size of a standard credit card, and it is exactly the size of that, right? Unless it's
Okay,
just a
well,
strap,
the
unless it's just a
smart
rubber
the
band.
smart ass in me is gonna say like, oh, but your phone can make payments too, and then it becomes just like an existential question for the
Yeah,
wallet in the future. But we said in the beginning of the episode I would stop doing that, and I
yeah.
lied. So sorry.
Okay, so what have we agreed on as far as like EDC defining, culturally EDC culture defining,
Hmm.
meta changing products?
Okay, so if
Like,
we were to build a pocket dump of this,
oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's good.
yeah,
Let's
okay.
let's close it out and
So
let's
if we were,
build a quintessential
yeah,
EDC.
if we were to build a pocket dump of this, I think it would be a Victorinox Classic SD.
Hmm. Not the,
Okay,
not like a super tinker, not like the 91 millimeter
no,
one.
because I
You
think
think
more
classic?
people.
I don't know.
I
I'm
don't know.
thinking super tinker or like a climber would
Oh,
still.
okay. How about this? How about this then to support my argument? I asked ChatGPT and it
Hmm.
said the classic SD.
Okay, fair.
So,
Well, yeah,
if
fair.
it scoured the internet and that's what everyone else is saying, then
Sure. Okay, fair,
okay.
fair, fair. Oh,
Okay.
wait, before we do this, did ChatGPT say anything that we didn't mention?
It said that it would be a better co-host than Mikey and that I should really consider
Hmm.
adding him
Just
to the workflow.
just like take over my voice. I'll sign off the rights to my voice. And
Okay, well, it said the flash for a quintessential flashlight, Olight S1R Baton 2.
nice.
I don't know about that.
I don't think so. S1 Baton, S1, the original S1 Baton,
No, it's like that's what Baton
maybe?
too. It's like ran. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
know. Yeah.
This
I
is
don't disagree.
this is the newest like engine of ChatGPT, by the way.
Sure.
I don't know. The rest, it's like actually we're. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want. Yeah.
Okay, so it didn't say anything that we didn't talk about.
I mean, it did, but how much do like value do we want to put into what AI has to think about this subject? That's why we exist. This is how
Sure.
this is our livelihood. We need to do this and not ChatGPT. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, if ChatGPT didn't mention anything like of note or like a weird suggestion like this one are two. So let's put together our quintessential.
Yeah.
And would it be fair to say that if you put this together, it would be good for the next 10 years, for the next 20 years of EDC? Fair to say, I think it's Yeah,
Yeah.
you
Well,
think so?
yeah.
Yeah. So
So
Swiss Army
Victorinox Classic
knife,
SD.
classic
Yep.
SD. For a knife, mini griptilian, or you want to go bug out?
Let's go bug out.
Bug out as
Yeah.
like the
The
culture defining one, because
Yeah,
the
but
mini
I'm also
griptilian
thinking,
started it, but bug out
yeah.
perfected it, I think.
I was gonna say because like I don't know if we're trying to make it last the next 10 years.
Yeah,
Like the bug out is like relatively newer and probably will be better supported.
oh yeah,
Probably a more robust aftermarket, retrofit kind of
true.
community for that platform.
I have also seen like mini griptilians with the rubber kind of like crumbling already, so it's
Hmm.
not as long lasting as like Grivery or
Mm-hmm.
any other variation of the
Mm-hmm.
bug out, pretty much. So if you get it in like carbon fiber or like a titanium or like the aluminum models, I think it should be good. But
Yeah.
basically, it's the axis lock defining knife of modern EDC, right? So
Yeah.
bug out. Um, for writing implement, are we going with Fisher Space Pen still?
Yeah. I think that'll be fine.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they're still using that pressure ink today. Like
Hmm.
it's still being found in a
It
lot
ain't
of
broke.
pens. Yeah,
Yeah.
it ain't broke. It still works.
Yeah.
Supposedly they write in space with it, so we're going with that.
Hmm.
Watch Submariner.
I don't think we landed on something that
Hmm.
works there.
I would say G Shock still. I would still say G Shock because this is already almost 10 years old and it's still
Yeah.
good. I'm about to replace the battery for the first time in 8 years.
Okay. Okay.
So with the battery replacement and a gasket cleaning, I think this is gonna be good for like at least 10 more years. And I've known people with G Shocks that are like 20 years old. So
I think if you put your name down on a Rolex wait list, maybe in 10 years you will get the Submariner. So that is also a viable option, I think.
true.
Yeah, but for now let's just say the G-Shock.
Okay. What about, so we have
Multi-tool.
multi-tool, Wave
I would say
Plus,
Wave Plus easy.
standard.
Like and it's kind of funny because we have like the free and the arc and all that, which probably are like better. Um but I don't know, Wave Plus just seems like
Hits
the
different.
right. Yeah, yeah, it just does. Yeah, it's different.
You know why I think it does? Because it got everything right already. Like, even if you take, you
Yeah.
could add improvements to the wave, like magnetic opening or like
Yeah, yeah.
making a titanium, but the fact that it's core tool set, the butterfly based pliers, the fact that it has a bit driver,
Mhm.
it's already all there. It already got it right the first time,
Mhm.
because it's like, not the previous models that came before the wave or like along with the wave, like the mutt or like the signal, they
Mhm.
don't have the same feature set as the wave. They're like modifications of the core butterfly design.
Yeah.
Like, not all of them have the bit driver, like the free even doesn't have a bit driver.
Yeah.
So
This is a good distinction, and I want to tie it back to the watch discussion because what you're saying with the Wave is like, or the Wave Plus, even if we have improvements like the Arc, for example, the Wave Plus can still get the job done and is good, and you don't need the Arc, right? But if we were to argue that the quintessential watch is an Apple Watch in 10 years, it won't work.
yeah, exactly.
Like even if you like replace the battery and completely refurbish it, like the operating system probably won't be supported, and it's just like not functional in that way. So
So we have a knife, multi-tool, flashlight. Ooh, what's our flashlight gonna be? I think it has to be something with like a standard battery still, even if it's not the Streamlight MicroStream. Although
yeah.
that would still be my pick, honestly. That would still be my pick.
And I feel like it would still be sold 10 years from now,
I know,
and like
right?
serviced, like not out of line.
Yeah,
um, that's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, let's just go
because
with that. I think
because
Streamlight's going to be around.
also, like, if you take a look at some of the more popular lights of the at least the past 5 years, like the Olight i3T and the Olight i5T, which is the AAA and the AA
Hmm.
version of the Streamlight design, like, even non EDC people I knew were buying that because it was like, this was like Olight's trajectory, like their
Hmm.
stonks going up that period. And then like they sold so many of those i3Ts. I was seeing them in carries left and right on
Yeah,
our
yeah, yeah.
side among other people, like in other EDC groups. It's like everybody had the i3T. I have an i3T in my desk
Yeah.
somewhere outside. So yeah,
So is it? Are we going Streamlight or
no,
OLED?
I'm saying that this was it's the modern Streamlight microstream, but I would say that the microstream
Okay.
is still the option. It's still affordable. I
Mm,
would still recommend it to people today. I would say to people, buy 5 of them, put one of them in your car, put one of them in your desk drawer, put one of them in your EDC,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's a great backup because you can buy the batteries everywhere. You can buy lithiums for it for long shelf life and all of that. So Streamlight Microstream, and it's like 100 lumens, which is already plenty. Or like,
yeah.
is it 80 lumens or something? Yeah, close to that. 80 to 100 for AAA.
It's more than you need.
It's more than you need.
Doesn't matter your
Exactly.
situation. It just somehow is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a flashlight. Um, do we just put it in a GR1 and call it a day? Do we pack it in a backpack
Yeah, I think so.
or a Lululemon sling?
Actually, yeah, all of that would probably fit better than Lululemon Sling,
And then you put
and be
that
a
in
lot
the
cheap.
GR1.
Be a lot cheaper too.
And then
Yeah.
you put that in the GR1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh,
Anyway,
cool.
yeah. Wow,
So
we all actually almost an hour of that.
yeah, so a lot to talk about. I'm curious to see what other people think are their versions or their ideas of quintessential EDC items and what
Yeah.
their predictions will be. Um, so very interesting, and yeah, make sure like for more context and sort of how to think about this if you want, there's going to be that video that sparked this discussion linked in the description. So that just about wraps it up for today's episode. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and if you did, please consider subscribing. If you're listening through a podcast service and you really enjoy what we do here, please consider leaving a review and a positive rating, as it would really help the podcast. You can follow us on social media for more content daily on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and all of that will be linked below. And if you want to be a part of our EDC community, feel free to hop into our Facebook group or Discord server for more real-time discussion with other EDCers. And lastly, if you have any feedback for us or questions you want answered on the show, you can shoot us an email at podcast@everydaycarry.com. Thank you so much for listening to Carry the Way. I'm Bernard.
And I'm Mikey. And yeah, let us know what your quintessential gear is. And yeah, let's talk about it.
Peace.